Hello, and welcome to another episode of Glorious Life on Wheels. I've recently been talking about changes that are coming down the pike that are going to impact people in California and New York. And today I'm going to talk about one of those changes in a little more detail, and that's the congestion zone fee that's being proposed for New York City. And I'm going to talk about what I think are some of the negative impacts that are going to come as a result of this fee being imposed, and why I'm saying that New York and cities like it that implement this are going to be for rich people only. So come on and let's talk about it. For those of you who missed my video in which I explained what a congestion zone is, a congestion zone is an area that it's deemed to have high congestion, lots of vehicles, and what is determined is that there needs to be a fee charged to people driving into that area on a daily basis. London has one of those zones, and it's proposed that New York will have one of those zones. It was supposed to be implemented in, I think it was 2021, but it got pushed back to 2023, and now they're talking about implementing it in the second quarter of 2024. What has happened is a lot of elected officials have been raising sand because they're saying, and I think rightfully so, that it's going to have a terrible impact on the poorest people within their jurisdictions, and that it's also going to deny accessibility to the city to many people. And let me go into a little further detail and explain. These fees are going to be up to $5,000 per year. Given that you have people who simply are not going to be able to afford $5,000 a year just for the privilege of driving into the city. So you're saying, well, don't drive. Some people in comments on my last video on that said, well, they don't have to drive. They can just take the subway. Well, everyone can't just take a subway. You've got to remember, everyone that's working in New York is not simply working in retail businesses or in office businesses. A lot of people are delivery drivers. You have Uber drivers. You have Instacart, DoorDash, taxis. Taxis are in an uproar over this. What some officials in New York are trying to do, they're trying to get a referendum on the ballot that would allow people to vote on this. If you think that is what should be done and how this should be handled, put a comment down there and let me know what you think. But I don't see this becoming a referendum, and I'll tell you why. It's projected that the revenue generated from the congestion zone in New York will generate listen, billion, not a million, not 50 million, $1 billion in extra revenue for, I guess, the transportation department. I'm not sure, but somewhere in New York, they will be getting an additional $1 billion. Now, do you think that the powers that be are going to give up $1 billion by allowing citizens to vote on this? I don't see it happening. I think they've got their hands, their mouths, everything is salivating over this $1 billion. They're already talking about how much money has been lost by the delays in implementing this. So one of the harms that I think will be done is that you're going to have poor people who are doing delivery service who are not going to be able to continue doing that. Another thing that I think is going to happen, you're going to have people who are going to decide they're not going to drive into the city. So you're going to have jobs that go unfilled. You're going to have businesses that are going to be having to close because they're having less customers. So if you have a tourist, do you think a tourist coming to visit who may be staying in New Jersey or outside of New York is going to want to drive in every day and pay an extra $23 or $25 just for the privilege of coming in? Or is going to stop somewhere, take a train, drive in, take a train back? Then I don't see it happening. So you're going to have loss of revenue from the tourist, but that won't impact so much the city power structure because they're going to be getting this $1 billion. Who it's going to impact is smaller ma and pa businesses that rely on people coming in to order a sandwich at their deli, who rely on people coming in to get a cup of coffee, who are no longer going to be working in the city. Because I think people are going to stop working in the city and start looking for jobs closer to where they live so they don't have to pay this fee. And at first I thought, wow, all these unintended consequences. Then I started thinking about it. Maybe these consequences aren't unintended. Maybe this is the whole point, to keep people within the 15-mile zone of where they live, as has been talked about in the past. But that's another video. We'll talk about that another time. But maybe it's not unintended. Maybe this is part of a larger plan. What do you think? Do you think this is part of a larger plan? But also, what I think is going to happen is it's not going to stop in New York City. And I'll tell you why. There was some communication that was leaked. I don't know whether it was an email or a memo, but basically the leaked communication was from some governmental officials proposing that the congestion fees that are charged in the London proper area be expanded outside of that zone into suburbs and other areas. So basically, what they're saying is, not only are you going to have to, are they proposing not only that you will be simply paying the congestion fee when you go into London, but if you live outside of London, if you're taking your kids to school, if you're going to church, if you're going to the hospital, wherever you're driving, that congestion fee is going to be implemented. Now, do you think that city officials or municipalities who may be struggling financially, and they look and they see all the money that London and eventually New York are making off these congestion fees, do you think that given the opportunity, they're going to turn down the opportunity to make those fees themselves? I don't think so. And it's not going to just stop, or I can't say for a fact, but in my opinion, let me couch it like that. In my opinion, it's not going to just be in New York, because based on some research that I did, as far as one report, the most congested city as far as traffic in the world is London. Well, the second most congested city in the world is Chicago. So once New York starts making all the money they're making, you don't think Chicago is going to jump on the bandwagon? Then San Francisco, then Des Moines, Iowa, then New Orleans, all of these areas will jump on. And once it's started in those areas, it will go for a year, maybe two, and then it'll expand out. So I think once you start on this slippery slope, you're not going to be able to stop it. It's the beginning, and it's going to expand and go through the entire country, except for probably in the most rural areas, maybe of Montana or Wyoming or something. But what do you think? Do you think I'm correct in making this assumption? Or do you think I'm just way off the mark and just being ridiculous? Let me know in the comments what you think. And also, do you agree? Because there were a few, not a whole lot, but there were a few people in the comments that agreed on having congestion zones. And what about the impact to poorer people or even middle class folks who can't pay these fees, and the jobs that they have, if it's a delivery type of job or a like an Uber or even a delivery truck service, they may have to quit those jobs. But let me know in the comments what you think. And if you don't think it's a good idea, do you have an alternative suggestion? That's always a good idea, to have an alternative to something you don't agree with. Meanwhile, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button if you want more content like this. And if you're not subscribed, for crying out loud, hit that bell, be a subscriber, and be part of the Globy family. All right, folks, I'll see you down the road with more content coming up.